competitive pricing on www.macmall.com. And also, in addition, we are giving away a brand new copy of Photoshop 6 for Mac. Just check out the MacMall Facebook page, and you can go ahead and enter. That contest is going on until the end of May. So let's see. Our speaker today is Brian Wood, and he should be sharing his desktop now. You guys should all see that. Brian is a seasoned web technology trainer, Adobe Creative instructor, and the author of books and training videos on Acrobat, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, and InDesign. In addition to his regular training programs, Brian speaks regularly at national conferences such as Adobe Max, the InDesign conference, as well as at events hosted by AIGA and other industry organizations. He also has a free video tips blog at www.brianwoodtips.com and a video learning site at www.askbrianwood.com. And now before I turn it over to Brian, I just want to cover a few things. First of all, this session is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on www.macmall probably early next week. Also, I put the call-in number on the chat screen. However, if you need that number, it's toll-free. Then it's 1-877-668-4493, and the access code is 647-380-741. Also, we will be hosting a question and answer session following Brian's presentation, so if you have any questions, please use the Q&A panel. And normally it can be found in the bottom right corner of your screen. However, if when Brian started sharing his screen, all of your panels disappeared, you should be able to hover over the top center of your screen, and it should say View Brian Wood's Desktop. And then what you can do is you can select what panels you would like open. So you'll see the participant panel, the chat panel, and then if you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see a down arrow, and then that is the Q&A panel, and you can go ahead and select to have the Q&A panel open as well. So now, without further ado, what I'd like to do is hand it over to Brian. So Brian, it's all yours.
Excellent. Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So as she said, we're going to go through and take a look at some of the new features that are in some of the Creative Suite applications. And before we get started, I wanted to just put this out there. I had a little boo-boo with my machine last night. I was actually working with demo applications, and Dreamweaver and Flash will no longer launch. And the interesting thing is I don't have the final versions yet because they just started shipping. And long story short, I'm not going to be able to demo any Dreamweaver or Flash today. Unfortunately, I would love to. So I really apologize for that. We will get to InDesign. We'll take a look at Photoshop. We'll take a look at Illustrator. I'll even, if we have a little time, I'll throw in some Muse just to show you some of the things that we've got. But there it is. So anyway, let's start out by taking a look at Adobe.com. And you can see that we have some new features out there. We have what's called Adobe Creative Cloud. Now, this website, I'm sure a lot of you have been to Mall's website or Adobe's website, and you're trying to figure out what all this new stuff is and how it all works. There's actually a cool little table in here that I wanted to show you. There's a link down here which says, what is it, on the bottom down here. And you can see if I click on it, it'll scroll up. And it just gives you a brief overview of this whole new Creative Cloud thing. It's actually pretty amazing if you decide to utilize it. It's the ability for you to basically sync files, to have like 20 gigs of storage space up in the cloud, to be able to download apps and do different things and stay up to date with your software really easily as a monthly membership. Now, if I click on the right over here, you'll see I'll click on this little picture on the right. It's going to bring up a table, and hopefully everybody can see this. I just found this table to be pretty helpful because it shows you what the Creative Cloud is all about. It talks about the services on the left side, the applications available, those that can be purchased separately, and you'll see there's some things in here and some for future release and stuff like that, and then community. But if you look on the left, one of the great things is the ability to sync devices. So you can have, let's say, I don't know, you're working on your iPad, you're working on Photoshop Touch, working on a file, and you want to be able to share it with your desktop computer or your laptop. You can do that using Adobe Creative Cloud. So you can sync these devices and files. You also have the ability to have cloud storage, like a lot of companies are doing these days. And you've got different features and things that we can utilize. And eventually we're going to have things like DPS, the Digital Publishing Suite, a single edition, which is something that is planned in a future release. And that's all part of the cloud. So this is something that is, like I said, it's new in CS6. You will still, if you have the applications, you can upgrade to this. You can upgrade to this, I'm saying. And you'll find that there's a lot of great things that this is going to open up and make your workflow easier. But what I want to do today is I don't want to spend a lot of time on Creative Cloud. I want to get to the applications. So what I want to do is I'm going to cancel this, get rid of this, and we're going to start out in InDesign. So let me get over to InDesign here. And InDesign CS6, I don't know how many of you use this. I'm sure a lot of you actually do. There's a lot of improvements, a lot of new features, a lot of things that have been done to the program just to make it so you can work faster in here. And a couple quick things that I kind of wanted to point out. Let me open up a file. Of course, we have a lot of the typical things that we can work with as far as mini bridge and all these different things that we saw in CS5. But one of the things right out of the gate, if you want to, we now have the ability to export, take a look, as a PNG file, which is kind of cool. We have a lot of different export options, but Ping is a new one that is great for a lot of different things, especially if you're doing, web content. We can also export as the typicals that we've got. Another one that I want to mention here that is not going to take up a lot of time is IDML. A lot of us know that if we want to take an InDesign file, and let's say we're in CS 5.5, and we want to have somebody open it in CS5, we want to save it backwards compatible using the IDML markup language. You're going to see that this has changed over the years a little bit, but the IDML actually allows you to have it readable in CS4, CS5, CS5.5, and CS6. So we can save back one file for all of those versions, which is, to me, it's really, really pretty great. If you work with EPUB and HTML, there are definitely new export options. We're not going to get to a lot of EPUB today. I wish we could, but I wanted to show you one thing with EPUB that I think is really pretty cool. Versioning. So if you work with, creating books, electronic books for sale, let's say on Kindle or through the Apple Store or something like that, you'll see that we now have different versions that we can export as with EPUB. Now, if you're not used to EPUB, if you haven't touched it, this may not make a lot of sense. You may not care, but for those of us that work with this, this can be a really good thing because with EPUB 3, we have things like JavaScript video, etc. And then we have EPUB 3 with layout, which is essentially an experimental Adobe standard. So I guess you can call it that. It works with Adobe Viewer technologies. But anyway, there's a couple things that are EPUB related, which I think are really pretty cool. Let me close that up. Now let's get to some of the meat of InDesign. And one of the great features, things that we tend to want to do these days with files is we tend to want to create, let's say, a single print layout that we can share for different things, for different devices, for different, save it as a PDF, put it on a website, save it as EPUB, save it as this, save it as that. And you need to have different orientations and different sizes and page sizes and dimensions. But how do you do that? Well, I mean, in the past, what we would do is we'd take a print piece like this and maybe do a save as and start changing everything, or we'd select a lot of content and start copying and pasting, and hopefully we could get it all to jive and whatever. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up another file here. And suppose that I have a layout here that I want to make the same content as this print piece that I'm doing, but it's going to go for an iPad. So I've got a horizontal orientation here that I want to use on an iPad. Now, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about working with what's called the Content Collector tool. You can see it over here on the left side in the Tools panel of the screen. And the Content Collector tool is a tool that allows you to take content from one, and it's a way to share content between documents. It's going to allow you to do things like create links that link to the original image file formats, things like that. If you look, as soon as I go to this tool, you're going to see this panel thing open up down here, and this is part of the collector. And it's also, when you go to place content, you'll see this is available as well. The Content Collector is sort of like, I kind of think of it like as a library panel, sort of, but it's really smart and it's easy to use. Suppose I go over to my print document, and let me do this. I'm going to actually zoom in here a little bit. What I want to do is I want to take some of this content and share it with my other document. Well, with this tool over here, with the Content Collector tool, what I can do is I can go and start clicking on pieces of content that I'd like to bring from document to document. And what it does is it essentially puts it in this Content Collector, say that 10 times real fast, Content Collector panel. And you can see it right there, and it allows me to then go to another document, another set of pages, whatever I have, and share that content or put it on the other document. So I go over to the iPad file, let's say, and I'm going to zoom in a bit here. You're going to see that I still have the collector selected. So what I want to do is I want to switch tools here and go to what's called the Content Placer tool. Now there's a shortcut for this. If you press the letter B, you can switch between collecting and placing. And it looks similar to what we would normally achieve or have when we place files or content, but it's allowing you to do text and pictures. If you look down here, you'll see that what I can do is use my arrow keys, or there's arrows down there and different things, and cycle between all the content. And what it does is it shows you on the left end which one is going to be placed, essentially. So if I select, let's say I select an image here, and I go and click, it's going to place it on the page. I'll go grab another horizontal, click, place it on the page, continue, etc. I could place these in existing frames. I could place them on the page like I'm doing, start working this way. Now, let me go and place the rest of this content. We can also click and drag to place the content to change, let's say, the size of the frame, the position of the frame, things like that. You can use a lot of the typical place features that you've got. One of the interesting things about this content collector and content placer is the fact that if we take from one document, you're going to see that it's automatically going to link that content, and it's going to be really hard to see even if I zoom in. Let me zoom in here. Can you see in the upper left corner here, you're going to see a little link icon? This is telling me that it's been linked to something else. Now, if I go to, let's say, the selection tool, essentially that closes the content collector panel. If I come on top of this thing, you're going to see a little link icon, and if I hover over it, it's going to say, oh, okay, well, here's where it's coming from in the tooltip. It's coming from this print document. There's the file name, and essentially it's linked to that one, which means that if I change it in one file, it's going to change in the other file. Now, how it changes is up to you, and I'll show you that in a few minutes here. But this content collector is a way for us, like I said, to bring content between versions or documents or different things you're working on to get the same content to go. Now, here's something else that I think is really, really pretty cool. I'm going to go to another page here. Let me zoom out a bit. I'm going to go to another page that I've got, and let's say that I grab, let's pick one here. I can pick any one. All right, let me grab this one. So let's suppose that instead of trying to just grab pieces of a page, what you'd like to do is you'd like to share that or put that in another version or another size like the iPad file. Well, using the Content Collector, if I press the letter B, it's going to go to Content Collector here, and you're going to see Content Collector tool. If I hold down the Shift key, what I can do is click and drag across a bunch of content, like on my mouse, then the Shift key, and it's going to look like it's grabbing just one thing here, like the actual Ritter, the last thing it went across, let's say. But you're going to see a number in the upper left corner over here. I wish I could zoom in over there, sorry. There's number 5. That means how many things it's actually collecting. So by shift dragging across, we're grabbing a series of content. I can then switch documents, go to, let's say, I just go to another page up here. How about a blank page maybe, Brian? That might help. There we go. I switch to the Content Placer. You're going to see right down here, Content Placer tool B. Now, what's really cool is as you do this, as you go to place this content, you'll first of all notice that the icon here says 1. It's placing a bunch of things. You can do things like create links if you want. Look down here in the Content Collector panel. You're going to see it says Create Link. That essentially means it's going to create a link between the text and the images between documents here. You can also do what's called Map Styles. I'll take a look at that in just a few minutes here. And we've got a lot of other things that we can do here. You can make it so that, let's suppose you want to place, a copy several times on different pages. Well, every time you go to place something that was put in this conveyor down here, they call it, it basically pulls it out of here. It's not going to let you place it again. But if I were to come down here and click on this little button, Place, Keep, and Load Next, it's going to make it so it's going to keep it in this little conveyor, this panel down here, and go to the next thing. So I can place it again and again if I want to. Now, let me zoom out a little bit here. And if I want to, I can go out here and I'm going to shift drag. So shift drag to place this content. Get it out there like on my mouse, my key, and you're going to see exactly what it does. It's going to place that content out there. in the orientation, in the size that I've got. And all of that content, if I go to my selection tool here, it's really going to be hard to see, and I apologize, but you're going to see little teeny arrows up here. So we actually have, or sorry, link icons rather. You can see right up here. If I hover over, it's going to tell me where it's coming from and what file it's actually placed from and what it's linked to. If I come to this little link icon here, and if I Option or Alt click on it, it's going to come over here to my links panel and show me exactly where it's linking to. So it's linking to essentially the same source that the original document is coming from. So using the content collector and the content placer, you can share content between documents. Now, let me do this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit again and go to a blank page here. Let me go back over to print, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another file, and I want to show you something here that's actually pretty interesting. If you go to place something in, let's say, this print document, like that image right there, and you want to make...
Sorry.
Yeah.
Real quick, I think we're delayed right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see my print document here? Leapfrog into Lively.
There we go. Okay, now I see... Yeah, now we see Leapfrog into Lively.
Okay. There's definitely a delay, though, huh? Okay. Well, oh, boy. So what I'll do is I'll slow it down.
Okay.
Slow it down. Okay. All right, so what I'll do is I'll just try and talk ahead maybe a little bit here. But suppose that we place an image in this print file. And what I want to do is I want to do the same thing. I want to be able to place it in another file and have it linked. We can use the Adobe, the content placer or the content collector if we want to. We can also use a menu command called place and link. So with something selected, let's say text or image, you'll see under the edit menu right there, place and link. If I click on that and I go over, you're going to see it's going to bring me in to the, you're going to see the belt down here. If I go back to the iPad file, I'll take a second here to let it catch up. This is essentially allowing me to link the two objects together, but we can do a couple cool little things here if we want to. Now, by default, if one image changes in the other file, let's say the print document, it'll update in here. It'll tell me that, and I'll show you that in a minute. But what we can also do, instead of just clicking to place this content in here, what I can do is click and drag, let's say, and place it in the size I want, do what I want to do here. You'll see, I'll give it a second here, but you'll see that I placed it. It's linked. There's a little teeny link icon if I zoom in here. Little teeny link icon in the upper left corner. Now, by me placing and not just clicking, but dragging across, we're essentially linking these two pieces of content together, essentially to the original file. This is actually linking it to the print document as well. If I come to this little link icon, and you're going to see if I hover over it once again, I'll see a little teeny yellow tooltip show up. I can alt-click, and it'll show me the file in the links panel. Now, I've already got it over there. It's already showing right now. Okay, it looks like it caught up enough so I can, okay. I'll still take it a little bit easy, you guys, because it seems like it's got a little lag. But you'll see the image in the links panel over here. What we can do, if we use, let's say, that command right there in the edit menu, is if I right-click over there, you're going to see we have some new link options that we can work with. In the links panel, by right-clicking and going to link options, you're going to see that if I want to, I can tell it, okay, well, if the link has been updated, warn me. It's going to give you a little warning, and you'll see that in a second. If it's been updated in the other file, we're essentially sharing content, right? Also, if I click and drag to place it after using that command under edit, it's going to pick up all the different things that are different from the print file. So it's going to say, oh, okay, well, you just drew it in here, so the size and shape is going to be different. So what that means is it's going to preserve the size and the shape in this file, but if I update the image of the print file, it'll update the image in here. Let me show you. Okay, this gets a little heady. It gets a little confusing, but watch. I'll click Cancel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the print file now. And you can see, oh, wait a second here. You're going to see the image right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that image, let's say. Okay, now the other file, the iPad file, has this content linked. So if I come in here and I just do, let's say, a file place and I replace it. Okay, so I'll just do this relatively quickly if you don't mind. I'll just click Open, place it, and get it in there, make a change, let's say, move it around a little bit. I'll just give it a second here. So I've replaced that image. Now, because I use the command under Edit, because I use the Place and Link command, if I go over to the other document now, if I go over to the iPad document, you're going to see that we now have a little yellow yield sign where that link icon was, essentially telling me that the link in the original print file has been updated. So what do you want to do? Well, a couple things we can do. We can go and update it, of course, or we can leave it alone. I'm going to update it. So there's a couple ways you can do that too. If I just click on the yellow icon there, it's going to click to update it. Now, because, here's the thing, here's the catch. Because I went in and I drew it first and it said, oh, you want the size and the shape to be different, it's just going to update the image itself and maybe some other things, but not the size and the shape, okay? So we can share individual pieces of content. We can use the content collector to be able to do this kind of content, this sort of things, I guess you can say. Let me get out of here. I need to keep on moving. I'm going to close these up, and I'm going to open up another file. And suppose that we have this. Suppose that I've got a page. Let me just get set up here, and then I'll give it a second. Suppose that we have a document, and it looks like a letter-size document or at least a vertical orientation. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a couple layouts for maybe the saving for the DPS, the Document Publishing Solution or System. That means I can make, like, let's say, an iPad app out of this. Well, I need two orientations, essentially, okay? Or I can create two orientations, let's say. Well, in InDesign CS6, what we can do is we can create multiple or alternate layouts in a single file. Here's how we do that. You want to create a vertical and a horizontal orientation, let's say. If I go to my Pages panel, there's several ways to do this, by the way. This is just one method I'm going to show you. Pages panel menu in the corner, you're going to see View Pages by Alternative Layout. Okay, so I will select that. And what you'll see is in the Pages panel, it's going to kick in this little iPad V, which stands for iPad Vertical. Now, if I come to the right here, it's not going to look very different, but if I come to the right, there's a little teeny arrow, and I'll move my cursor a little bit so you can see it right there. If I click on that, we can create alternate layouts, and it's going to show the alternate layouts, almost as many as we need here, in the Pages panel. If I click on Create Alternate Layout, stop saying alternative, what we can do is we can create, let's say, a horizontal version of this vertical version. You can go in and set up page size, orientation, do what you need to do. You can name the alternate layout, and it could be, Brian's best layout. It doesn't really matter. It's telling it which layout to pull from. So right now we've only got one, this iPad V that's already over there. You're going to see that we now have different page size presets that we can pull from, iPhone, Pad, Kindle, Android. And we can link all the stories. We can do things like copy text styles, do smart text reflow, different things like that you can turn on and off. Now, by default, I'm going to set the liquid page rule to off. This is an important thing. I want to show you this. I'll click OK. It's going to create another layout in the Pages panel. You're going to see vertical and horizontal orientations in the same file. And the great thing is that the content between the two layouts is linked together. So if you change the original, it's going to change this one. Now, what we can do is we can split the window, and there's a couple ways to do that. Down in the lower right corner, way down here in the document window in the right corner, I can click on this little split window. That's only just one of a bunch of ways to do this. If I click in each side here, I'll click on the left side first and come to iPad V and double click. Come to the right-hand side over here and double click on the right-hand layout. You're going to see what it does. So essentially what it's trying to do here is it's trying to say, all right, let's just keep the original and stick it on the page. For some of you looking at this going, well, that's kind of dumb. But there's a reason you might do this, okay? There's certain reasons you might do this. But in our case, nah, I don't want to do this, okay? What I want to do is I want to have it to where InDesign does the heavy lifting. It goes in and takes my content and fits it as best way it can into a horizontal orientation. So let's try that. I'll go back over to the Pages panel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the alternate layout we just created, this iPad H. There's a bunch of ways you can do it, but I'll click on the arrow and choose Delete Alternate Layout. Now, we would have done this right the first time. It's going to say, all right, we're going to delete everything, all that stuff, all gone. Beautiful, back to the original. Okay, now, it's showing the same split, which is kind of weird, so I'll unsplit for a second. Now I'm going to create a new layout in the Pages panel. Once again, there's several ways to do this. Create alternate layout. This time I'm going to say, let's have a liquid page rule. This is the meat. This is the good stuff right here. This means that you can have it be let's preserve existing, which means let's try our best to make sure that everything looks the same relative positioning, but in a horizontal orientation. You can do it based on guides, on scaling, objects, all sorts of things. And it's just something you're going to have to try. I'll click OK, preserve existing, and I'll split. Take a look once again. I'll go left, take that one, go right. I'm just going to do that quickly. I apologize. And you're going to see exactly what it does now. It's now taking control here, and it's trying to fit it the best way it knows how, the best way it can see it working. Of course, we can still go in and edit. A lot of this stuff is movable. It's still whatever you want to do here. The actual content is linked together, which is good. That way you change it once, it changes both, but we still have control. So that's one way to be able to create alternate layouts. There's a couple ways to get around that, or get to that rather. Another thing we can do, which is really, really great, is you can go in and with liquid layouts, let me move the Pages panel. I'm going to open up the, what's called the liquid layouts panel here. And I'm going to go to interactive, liquid layout, there we go. You can go into individual objects on your pages. Let's say I grab this letter A right here. And we can set resize or pinning options. This means that if the page resizes and we want to have it be liquid, meaning let's say that you create this for 3 different devices. It's not just for iPad. And all the devices have a little different screen resolution or different size. Well, we can make it to where it actually resizes content based on what we decide. Width, height, pinning it. Pinning it means keep it stuck to the top, right, bottom, or left. You decide which one to do, or which ones to do, I should say. And you want to automatically fit the content within the frame if it resizes, like images. So we've got a lot of options here. We can also do things like this. Let me split the window here. If we want to, let's say I go to the Page tool. Okay, the Page tool has been in InDesign. And I come out here, and let's say I take a look at some of this content. And I'm going to go to the A right here. Right now, you're going to see that it's actually pinned on the top and the right. And you're going to see it down here in the liquid layout panel, pin, top, and right. We can tell it not to pin or to pin on certain sides so that if this page changes sides, it can stay stuck to a certain side or a relative positioning. So watch. I clicked on the left here and said, okay, let's pin it to the left. With my Page tool, if I go out and resize, you're going to see exactly what it's going to do here. It's going to say, okay, keep the edge of the frame here relative to the distance from the edge of the page here. And if the tablet size or the orientation or something changes, if I have a single layout, let's say, it'll go in and start to change this content. We have all of these rules that we can work with now, which is really pretty amazing. So anyway, I can't get too much further with that. We need to talk about something else with InDesign. So let me close this up.